teacher. Now, let me start with my introduction. Quite recently, I was on LinkedIn and I happened to see a video of Tom losing his job to AI. Now, what happened was that the woman in blue is actually Tom's employer, and Tom was hired to catch mouse in her house. What happened was that one morning, the woman called Tom to come, and she told Tom that she has gotten a new mouse catcher. Tom laughed because when he saw that tiny thing over there, Tom thought it wasn't capable of catching mouse. And so the woman instructed the IA machine over there, you can see in red, that it should catch a mouse. Within a second, it was able to catch a mouse and dismantle the mouse. And it came back to where the woman was standing. Now, after Tom seeing what happened, Tom quietly went into the room, packed his stuffs, and then went out of the house. Now you can see Tom leaving the house. So Tom was the first person to lose his job to AI. That notwithstanding, we are not saying that Tom wasn't efficient. Tom was very efficient in catching mouse. That is why he was able to work in the woman's house for some time. But what we are saying here is that there was a more efficient method of catching mouse than Tom, and hence Tom lost his job. Now, what am I implying here? As teachers, there are more technological advancement. There are more advanced in method of teachings. There are new method of teachings in our field. There are new, knowledge that has been discovered in our field. What we have to do as teachers, or what is required of us as teachers, is to read wide, is to get to know what is actually happening in our field, so that we don't end up as being Tom in losing our job to AI. That notwithstanding, I know teachers can never lose our job to AI, but then you can also get fired. Now, my reason for choosing this topic is, back in Ghana and here in India, at the end of each academic year, we see teachers leaving the school, not because they want to change job, but because the management isn't pleased with what they are doing, with their work. And so they ask them either to resign or they will sack them from the school. Now, this is so disheartening, seeing people that are being depended on by their family leaving. And sometimes they remain jobless for some time. And so this has become necessary for me to talk about what we need as 21st century teachers to help us to be able to remain relevant in our field as teachers. Now, the question is, why the need for us to equip ourselves as a teacher? Why do you need to equip yourself? Now, whether we like it or not, there is change, and there is more change ahead. And so what we have to do as teachers is to abreast ourselves with these changes that are happening in our field and in the field of teaching as well. Now, there has been a change in the educational landscape. You bear witness that how you were taught in the 1990s, in the 2000s, isn't the same way we are teaching our students now. And so there is change. Either you like it or yes, there is change. And so we have to make sure that these changes are being implemented in our lessons day in and day out to see the results that our management and we ourselves as teachers, the goals we've set up for ourselves. All right. Now, some of these changes are technological advancement. I'm going to talk detail into this in my next slide. There has been a lot of changes in technology, in how technology is used in teaching. And so as teachers, we have to abreast ourselves with these technologies. I'm going to talk about some few of them later. Then there is globalization. Myself, I'm an example. Currently, I'm in India from Ghana, teaching here. So if I'm not abreast with issues in India, I might end up offending my students, because how I'm going to address issues concerning India have to be empathetic. I have to show empathy to my students. If I handle it anyhow, I'm going to offend them. So how are you going to apply globalization in your teaching in order to be a very effective teacher? And then the last one is, now the need of students has changed. soon as a child is given birth to, right from year one, they have access to internet. They can search for things themselves. They can read on their own from the internet. They watch a lot of movies that has a lot of technological advancement. So the need of our students is different from our need those days. So you can't apply the 20th century teaching to our 21st century children who are more technologically inclined, even more than we the teachers. So we as the teachers, we have to set up and beef up. Now, the question is, what are some of these skills that we need as teachers to remain relevant throughout our teaching years? Now, what we need, first of all, is that we have to adjust to the technological changes in our system. Now, you bear with me that before students were not having access to computer, even talk of iPad and tablets. And now students have their own tablets, they have their own computers and all that. So we have to integrate what they are familiar with in their teaching. So they are familiar with laptops. We can make positive use of their laptops in the classroom. And as a teacher, you have to know how students can use their laptop positively to affect their teaching. You have to know how to use, interactive boards, just like what you are seeing in the picture as a teacher. And now there is a new, tool, that is IA tool, and the most common one is the GPT that is used everywhere. Now, most boards, curriculum boards have endorsed this IAs in learning. And so we should know how positively we can use these tools in our teaching, in our lessons, that will help impact the student positively. Now, we are not saying that these technological advancements have only positive impacts. We are aware of the negative impacts, but you as a teacher, as a 21st century teacher, you have to make sure that they are using their laptops, they are using their tablets, you're using the interactive board positively to affect the teaching or the learning process of the student. So you have to be abreast with these technological advancements, how to use these tools, how to use computers, how to use iPads, and all that. Now, the next thing to talk about is online learning. Online learning has been in existence for some time now, but the onset of COVID actually increased the use of online learning. And it baffles me when HR people contact you, especially for online platforms teaching, and then they contact you and they be like, are you familiar with any online tool? And I get so surprised because I thought by this time, every teacher should know how to use these online platforms for teaching. Because whether we like it or not, this is the new era of teaching. And very soon, not even soon, there are schools that operate online only. And so as teacher, we have to get familiar with these tools, especially the most common one is Zoom. We can have Google Meet and all that, but get familiar with one of them, actually, so that if there is any opportunity after school that we can teach people online, we can just utilize it. It's better you prepare to meet the opportunity than the opportunity comes before you prepare. So let's get to familiarize ourselves with these online platforms. We can just search on YouTube. You can just search these virtual platforms, how you can effectively use them in teaching. They can show you how you can navigate through these, online platforms, so that as a teacher, you can be up and doing. Now, there's another method, which is the hybrid one. Sometimes in my class, I do them. If a student doesn't come to class because, possibly not because he is sick or not because he's sick, but then he's out of town or something, the person can join online. So there's hybrid form of teaching. You teach online, then you teach the offline as well. So as a teacher, you have to apply these skills that will make you relevant. For example, your coordinator comes to you and be like, there is a student who is not in school today, and the student has to join online, and you are like, you can't blend the two. You are becoming irrelevant. So you have to be up and doing. Just read more, find out more about what is happening in the technological world to remain relevant, or else we are going to lose our job just like Tom. All right, the next thing you want to talk about is that now I spoke about the fact that the need of the student has changed. So we don't go to class and then start dumping things on the students as if you are the God of all knowledge. No, we don't do that now. Now, the student is the active part of the learning. So every learning has to be centered on the student. So as a teacher or as a 21st century teacher, you have to move away from the teacher-centered method of teaching to student-centered method of teaching. Now, somebody might ask, what are some of these student-centered methods? Example is what you can see in the image there, group discussion. So group discussion is one of the ways students can learn on their own. Now, we are not saying that the teacher doesn't have a role in shaping their knowledge. What happened is that after the students have gone to discuss whichever topic they have, it's your responsibility as the teacher to make sure that whichever knowledge they have gained is actually the right one. Or you help shape whichever knowledge they have gained from whatever discussion they had. So you, the student, you, the teacher, will act as a facilitator to facilitate whatever they are learning. Now, that is not the only student-centered method. You can have role play. So the student is actively taking part in the learning. It's not like the student is sitting down and you are telling him what photosynthesis is, what respiration is, what human body is. No, they are actually playing a role, and that forms part of their learning. And that is what the 21st century students want, not the root learning where the students sit and then you pour on the students. Now, you can also have in the sciences, you can have demonstrations, not only in the sciences, in other disciplines as well. You can have experiment as well. So you don't have to just always be showing videos. I mean, videos are good, but it's more precise if you go to the lab and demonstrate or experiment whatever you are talking about to the students. And then again, you can have debates. You can give them projects, work to do, so that the students will actually examine themselves, learn on their own, and you as the teacher will just facilitate whatever they are learning. So that is the student-centered method. Then notwithstanding, there are certain topics, and those are few of them, that you have to use teacher-centered method, especially in derivation of formulas, sometimes in mathematics. But now most of the learning processes should take place based on the student instead of the teacher being the embodiment of knowledge. Now, you as a 21st century teacher, you have to get what I term as ATL skills, but then I term that as good teaching and learning skills. You have to have those skills yourself as a teacher before you can transfer it to your students. Now, students now think more critical because of the movies they watch, because of the interactions they have online. So they ask more critical questions. So you as a teacher, if you are not a critical thinker, you might find yourself wanting in the classroom. So you have to be a critical thinker so that you can transfer that to your students. You have to research a lot. So personally, once in a while, I go to Nature to read some of the articles, to see some of the advancements in my discipline, that is biology, environmental systems and society. So basically environmental sciences. I go there to read what is happening there. Currently, I read about low sperm count and then all that. So you have to read so that though it might not be in your curricula, but then if any student should ask a question pertaining to that, you'll be able to give updated information, not outmoded information. And then you should have very good cordial relationship with your students. I have got to know in this 7 years of teaching that students don't usually learn your subject because you teach so well. They learn your subjects basically because they like you and they want to impress you. And that's what I've learned. So one of the first things I do when I enter a class is to build relationship with my students, at least with most of them. And if you're able to get most of them with you, the rest will follow. Some of them might take time, but then as soon as they see that most people, especially the influential ones in the class, are liking you, they also begin to like you. And that is one of your success tools to use in teaching. Get the student along. Let them have trust in you. Let them know that you are capable. Build a very good relationship with them. Know when to say sorry, know when to criticize, know when to handle issues in class so that you can have very good and cordial relationship with your student. And above all, you have to have good communication skills. Communication is two-way affair. So whatever you're communicating to your students should be able to understand and communicate back to you. And that is very important as a teacher. So these skills should be with you as a teacher. And one other thing I have to add is management. You have to manage yourself very well. You should be on task. If you give assignments and then you tell students you are giving feedback today, please try as much as possible to give the feedback. They will know that our teacher is organized, our teacher can manage himself in terms of time, so we can equally do that. So in that case, if you set deadline for students, they know that you meet your deadline, so they are also going to meet their deadline. So some of these things, we might see them as little, but those are the things that are very relevant or the most important things. And then the next thing I'm going to talk about is globalization and then cultural sensitivity. Now, the thing that you share in your home native country that makes them laugh, especially myself, the thing that I will tell my students I will laugh, students here will not necessarily laugh or they wouldn't be happy with it. So I have to be very sensitive to their cultural differences. And then especially when I'm talking about global issues, I have to also be very sensitive about that so that no student will be offended. So you as 21st century teacher, in those days, I think those days they might take things lightly, but in our current dispensation, things like that are not taken for granted. So you as a teacher, you have to know how you can show empathetic to your students, the kind of things you say. You have to be kind to them in terms of your words. You don't have to offend them. That doesn't mean that you have to pretend. Be yourself, but make sure that you are careful with the kind of words you choose, the kind of things you say to them, and then the kind of issues you address in terms of culture, religion, and all that. You have to be very sensitive, or else you are going to find yourself wanting. Then the last thing to talk about here is that you don't have to stop learning. You have to be a lifelong learner. You don't have to stop learning. As I said about research, keep on learning, reading about new things, at least once in a while. Search on a journal, get to know what is happening in your field so that you're up to task anytime. I'm not saying that as a teacher, you have to answer all questions of your students, but at least try as much as possible to answer most of their questions for them to build trust in you so that students can have confidence asking questions in class. Because if they ask questions and then they are not getting the required answers, they're not getting the updated answers, and students even have to tell you that, no, this is past, this is the current trend. That is questionable. So we have to learn even after school. Then the last thing I'll talk about is professional development. You have to develop yourself professionally. Take courses. You can go on Coursera. Coursera is an app, or let me say a website that actually take courses. So you can go there, do some courses, especially during your leisure times or during vacations. Take up some courses, develop yourself. Let's just be relevant to the school. When you say you are leaving the school should have a reason to tell you to stay. That is what I'm talking about here. So just be relevant to your school. And then you can also, further your education. If you've done your diploma, you can go ahead to do your degree. If you've done degree, you can go ahead to do your master's. If you're interested in doing your PhD, you can go ahead to do your PhD. That will give you more value. You don't have to stop learning. Keep on learning. If wherever you have planned getting to, just try as much as possible. Don't relax. Keep on doing whatever you are doing and do that very well. And I believe that with this skills, this knowledge you acquire, it will help you survive in this 21st century. Now, I'll conclude with this famous quote that I don't know the one who quoted it, but I saw it online and it was so interesting, so I decided to add it to my presentation. Now, work your way up or rust your way out. Looking at the trend of technological advancement, you have no option than to upgrade yourself and to abreast yourself with these technological advancements. If you are not ready to work out yourself, then prepare to work out of whatever you are doing. Because trust me, if you keep on using those 20th century teaching methods, teacher-centered methods, you are not going to get the results that you need. And I always tell my students that every best teacher, no matter what you are, if your students don't pass, you end being the best teacher. And for your student to pass, you should be able to know the right teaching techniques or methods to use to teach them, to help them be able to at least pass the examination and be able to survive in their environment or wherever they found themselves, in their workplace or wherever they found themselves after school. So we should, this should be deliberate. It shouldn't be one way affair. We should deliberately work on ourselves. We should deliberately learn. We should deliberately find out the new trends in technology. Now, in science, initially, I spoke about experiments, but then better still, if time is not on your side, you can quickly go online, get a simulation for your student to practice it. And it's almost the same as doing it in the lab. That is when it is not convenient. So there are a lot of technological advancement that we can take advantage of. There are a lot of issues, skills that we have to acquire, like critical thinking skills, analytical thinking skills, communication skills, social skills. These are skills we have to develop. And then we have to also be sensitive. You have to be empathetic to our students. We have to show empathy to our students so that they will understand us from our point of view. And we can also understand them from their point of view. And teaching and learning becomes easier. Now, to wrap up, don't stop learning. Keep on learning. Keep on researching. And I believe that whatever you have set yourself, whatever teacher you want to become, you can easily become that teacher. There are more to talk about, but because of time constraints, we can't move on. I'll end here. And there are a lot of topics I want to discuss maybe after today, in terms of students, how we can implement student-centered teaching in our classrooms and a lot more. So we'll meet again another time. But for now, thanks so much for